Hello, this is Aoife Dean and this is the Happy Weight podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to start with a few stories actually. Funny story from last week. I had a client starting a program and she's a new mom and she has a little baby and she's from up the country and she said I think someone recommended my podcast to her and then since then she's just been binging episodes and she said that she was joking with her husband that the baby's going to have a Cork accent because they're listening to so much Aoife Dean. I was like, that is so cute and such a compliment. Hopefully the baby won't, of course, but I thought it was a cute story. Then second of all, food-wise, I was just talking to a client and she was saying she was listening to the last episode, I think it was, where I was kind of saying I had Chinese leftovers for breakfast. And she was like, I know you're normal and the same as everyone else anyways, but she's like, stories like that really prove it. And then I'm kind of I'm so imperfect with my diet, right? I'm so imperfect. But the thing is for me, right, I used to be a binge eater. I used to have bulimia. I used to have food noise 24 hours a day. I was always starting diets. I was always on new diets. I was always cutting out some food. It was constant for me. And I was 3 or 4 sizes bigger than I am now. So I am just delighted that I'm no longer an overeater. I'm no longer a binge eater. I am a healthy size. I am a healthy and stable size. I have been this size for a long, long time now. And also, it used to be one of my affirmations, but throw me anywhere. I could be anywhere with anyone at any time of the year, in any location, and whatever food is put in front of me, I can use it to feel nice. Food doesn't scare me. I don't eat nothing. I don't eat everything. I don't call things bad days, good days. So I'm delighted with where I am. I am very happy with where I am. But that does not mean that I have a vloggable diet. That does not mean that if I took photos of everything I eat, that A, it would make sense, B, always be appetizing to you, or C, be photo worthy. It definitely isn't. And I suppose one of those stories, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say it, but I was coming home I go dancing every second Monday with my neighbours in Camola. I don't live there anymore, but I'm still friends with everyone there. And I was driving home from that and I knew I was hungry because I went into Lidl and everything looked extra amazing. Gherkins looked amazing. Just literally everything looked amazing. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely hungry. And I got those little rice crackers. They're not rice cakes. They're these little Thai or Chinese rice crackers and they're savoury but yummy powder on them. And I ate the whole pack and a packet of turkey on the way home. That's not cool. That's not photo worthy or whatever. But yet again, I'm dead happy with what I eat. Works for me. It's cool. But I suppose I was eating that in the car and I was like, I suppose sometimes my clients might think that everything has to be a massive occasion, and obviously in an ideal world, we would make a lovely setting, have nice music on or whatever, lay the table, make it a super pleasant, positive experience when we're eating. That's always the holy grail. But, sometimes we can have a busy schedule and we can't pour as much love and attention into what we're eating. And instead, whatever I eat next now after doing this podcast, I will be pouring a lot of love into it. And we can always catch up with love and attention, I think, with what we eat. Another story, I was minding my 2 nieces over the weekend. My brother and my sister-in-law were away and I had Lizzie and Hannah, they're 4 and 2. And I was just preparing myself for the exhaustion. I was like, oh my God. I was staying there Friday night, Saturday night, and I had the girls to myself all Saturday and all Sunday. And, I know anyways from working with moms, the vast majority of my clients have always and still are moms. And, there is this link with exhaustion and carbs and kids. And, it was funny because I work in this every day. But by 2 p.m. on Saturday, I already felt the love handles. I felt kind of my belly and my body being heavier because I had already polished off a leftover bagel, a leftover fish finger, a leftover whatever. And like, to be honest, for me, there's a teeny bit of novelty in that because that's not my daily life. But after that, the novelty was kind of gone because I did not feel good. And like, I suppose I was kind of thinking about how my old mindset would look at that. And, you know, say if I was heavier in a week's time or heavier in 2 weeks' time, I'd be like, oh my God, it's so unfair. Like, I actually never eat McDonald's or Coca-Cola, or, you know, I actually do exercise more than people, and I actually do watch my food or whatever. Because when someone has the good food, bad food mindset, like, it really causes weight problems. Like, it's proven in science that disordered eaters, people with eating issues, they tend to think there's this vast difference between, say, an apple and a chocolate bar. And really, in terms of weight, there kind of isn't, right? Because, like, with weight, and I was saying this to an anorexic client this morning, like, she's only eating a teeny breakfast and a dinner. And I was like, it actually wouldn't matter how much you're eating if it was just 2 settings. If it was like you're only eating for like 20 minutes, half an hour a day, it doesn't matter what you're eating. It's probably not going to be enough. And especially in her situation. But the same goes with overeating. It's like, it actually doesn't matter what we're picking and constantly snacking on. It doesn't matter how or why we're going to bed over full. Like, the signals are more important than the food. And like, I was kind of thinking that if this was me before, you know, I would have clocked up, you know, the food, and I would have been like, nothing wrong with bagel, you know, it's good to have carbs at breakfast, or nothing wrong with this, like, that's not a bad food, that's not a bad food. And it's kind of like, the whole thing is, there are no bad foods. There are no bad foods. And that's got nothing to do with anything. Why I felt love handles on Saturday at 2 p.m. was because I was eating a lot more than my body had asked for. My body hadn't actually given me a hunger signal because I had eaten a fair bit on Friday night. I was full going to bed, and my body was still really working through that on Saturday. So it was irrelevant whether the foods were bad or good. It was the fact that I didn't need them. That was the thing. So yeah, I suppose that's just a bit of a story. And to be honest, I don't know, do I have the perfect solution for those situations? Like, I kind of think minding kids and being exhausted, late or early flights and loads of travel and loads of sedentariness that comes with that, crazy busy at work, any of those situations where we're maybe a little bit caught for time and sleep deprived, I do kind of think that one way out of it for me is just leaning on fluids. Like, and yet again, of course, someone else would have a problem with, say, drinking caffeine or too much caffeine. But for me, I'm like, I just have to pick the lesser of evils. I just have to pick the, you know, like just the easiest thing to pick my battles, basically. So I kind of feel that if I'm, you know, it's kind of oral fixation as well, where we either need to be eating or drinking or talking. And I think I can have that a little bit. So in those times where it'd be super easy to just continue the picking, continue the snacking, instead, I think just drinking tea, drinking decaf tea, drinking herbal teas, drinking water, drinking sparkling water, like, keep things busy with the fluids, because I kind of think that can maybe distract you enough to allow enough time for hunger to rise a little bit and your body to have gained ground on the backlog of the last stuff that you have eaten, and make room for new fuel to start getting those signals that you do need new fuel. So I kind of think that really helps me anyways. So then, right, on to carbs for today. Like, I was thinking about this yesterday, right? And I think what's really unfair actually about a lot of weight problems is a lot of good girls get weight problems, because if you think about it, we're trying to follow the rules. So we've gone into diets, we've tried to follow their rules, and we didn't know that following rules with food creates a really high chance of becoming a disordered eater and becoming an overeater. Like, we didn't know that. We thought we were really doing the right thing by keeping an eye on our diet or doing what we were told. And it's just such an awful outcome. It's such an awful outcome that the prize that we get for trying to do the right thing is actually a real disordered eating approach to food. and a lot of weight that never belonged to us. And like, I suppose through all my years of dieting and trying to do the right thing, like in secondary school, I would have, like, this is the thing, everyone starts out off with good intentions and healthy intentions. And, you know, like, as in, you know, obviously we had studied the food pyramid and everything in national school and secondary school and home ec. And I was trying to be a good girl by like following, at the time it was like 7 or 8 portions of carbohydrate. But at the end of the day, I was more or less sedentary and I was 5'2". So, you know, it's like, and then, you know, there'd be times where watching movies or at weekends or getting takeaways or whatever, you'd still have that surplus energy from what you ate last night or yesterday or over the weekend. So to be heading into every day with 8 portions of carbs, a lot of the time was too much for me. And so, you know, I remember I used to have these gigantic bowls of all bran and banana before school, and, you know, just a lot of pasta for supper and things like that. And I thought I was doing the healthy thing. And this is why it's so annoying. And I hope the day will come really quite soon where nutrition is never nutrition is never spoken about in isolation to signals, because food is only ever as good as your signals are telling you that it is. And otherwise, we're being black and white. We're assuming every day and every human and everyone's needs are the same. And then for every day we've got black and white thinking, we're going to go further and further away from the diet we actually need. And we're going to go further and further away from our natural weight. So yeah, I used to feel heavy and overfull a lot in those times with the amount of carbs that I was eating, and also constantly trying to stick with 3 meals, 2 snacks, which was, you know, touted as the healthiest way of eating. But then I suppose I come on to the next part, right, which is when I was low carbing it around 2010, 2012 in London. I'd be always on low carb diets, and like that went horribly wrong as well. And this is the thing that I suppose our black and white thinking switches between no carbs or loads of carbs. You know, I'm on the wagon, I'm off the wagon. And like, we need to kind of realize that that way of thinking has nothing to do with health, because health is balance. So health is never 0 and it's never 100. It's always balance. It's always relative to the day, relative to what was right for the occasion, your mood, your stomach, your taste buds. Like, there is no hard and fast rule with nutrition that could work for every day of your life. There is none. So what I figured out from binging so much at weekends was, I figured out that like my body is gonna get its hands on carbs anyways, right? It's gonna find a way to get its hands on carbs. So I can admit that and have rice with my lunch, or have a bread roll, or have carbs in my supper, or have carbs in my breakfast, or I can pretend I don't need carbs and then have like just eggs for breakfast and just salad and just almonds or whatever, and then be binging all weekend on poorer quality carbs. So I kind of think that like we have to admit defeat, that it's a lovely concept to not need carbs. But if you've ever done a diet that reduced carbs and then you went back to overeating them, in fact, if you've ever found yourself overeating carbs in general, the ship has sailed with you having a long life without carbs. Like, that ship has sailed for you. And maybe on Instagram, there are people that say they're really happy without carbs. Cool, good for them. Another factor, I think, is if you have a normal life, if maybe you live in Ireland or the UK or the developed world, and you family and you friends, and you want to come together for birthdays and communions and celebrations and reunions and girly getaways, like, carbs are part of your life then. So it's like, let's stop trying to run and hide from them and limit them, or be like, okay, from Monday to Friday, I'm not going to eat any carbs. So then when I'm away at the weekend, I can allow myself some carbs. Like, restriction only ever leads to overeating. You know, like, restriction isn't what leads to balance. Cutting out carbs isn't what will allow you to one day approach carbs in a take it or leave it way. People who approach carbs or any food in a I'd take it or leave it way are people that are so used to trusting themselves to eat something when it actually would taste good and feel good, that they're very, very aware of the different kind of feeling in their body then, a time when the carb or the food would not taste good and not feel good. So it's actually from trusting ourselves to try a food and see how it goes and see how we feel after it that helps us learn the pattern of when it would suit us and when it wouldn't suit us. So yeah, I've written in my notes here, no carbs equals eating a load of trashy foods. But the other side of the coin is that forcing yourself to eat carbs also leads to eating loads of trashy foods. So if you were doing what I did in secondary school, where hell or high water, you could come home on a Monday, you're still full as a frog because you were at a hotel over the weekend, you had the big hotel breakfast or you had the big dinner, or it was pretty sedentary or whatever, you didn't burn a lot of energy. So you're not remotely hungry on a Monday morning. And then you sit down to a haggard of porridge because porridge is a good breakfast and you need to get back on track with being good. What that pushes us into then is always feeling satiety, force feeding ourselves food when we're not actually hungry, when our body didn't actually ask for it, means that actually as well our enjoyment of food reduces. So the drug we get out of food, the enjoyment we get out of food reduces because our body is already satiated. And this is where you might have experienced being like, oh my God, I'm so emotional, I feel awful, what could really help me? Maybe I'll get the best brownie and the best hot chocolate, and then you have it and it's disappointing. So that's what happens from making an absolute hell or high water kind of schedule and timings of the day with food. I personally don't believe it works in today's day and age. Of course it worked in the 60s or 70s because people were hanging hungry for their meals when they came in at 1 o'clock. They needed their dinner. They were out in the farm, or, I'm sure my granddad used to walk from Drumleague to Ballineen to work in the railways and stuff, as in the amount of physical work that was done. And then the kind of foods they were eating, the turnips, the cabbage, the little bit of meat, the whatever spuds they could spare, that kind of thing. They didn't have high density foods. So no matter how you slice it and dice it, they probably needed to eat more than the 3 times a day. They were all probably a little bit undernourished and underweight back in the day. Whereas nowadays, it's we can really catch up on calories pretty quickly, a 3-course meal and some wine or whatever. That might be a lot of energy for our system. That might be a lot of processing. So to come at it hard again then the next day of I need my breakfast, I need my lunch, I need my dinner, I need my snacks, I need my thingy after dinner. It's well, something's probably got to give somewhere. Surely be to God, at some stage of the game, your poor little pancreas gets a little break, and your poor little stomach gets a break, and your gallbladder gets a break, and your digestive enzymes get a chance to restock, and your stomach enzymes get a chance to restock, and the taste bud signals and the reward centers of your brain get a chance to dull and then heighten again. So that gap in service is so important, and it is vital in order to have a great relationship with food, that we have that gap in service and that we have hunger building, because otherwise it's just, it's basically the opposite of what seldom is wonderful. As in, the studies show that the more we overeat, the less we enjoy food. And generally the heavier people get, the less they enjoy food because their body stops rewarding them for eating. So if you're not enjoying food at the moment, that might be something to maybe look into, that maybe the reason stuff isn't tasting that good is because you're actually overfed. And then if you figure out you're actually overfed, well, then you need to think back on the last 7 days and what was the least worthwhile thing you ate. Not by a nutrition perspective, not by someone else's opinion, but what did you eat that was utterly pointless? That you actually felt the same or worse after you ate it. It didn't remotely benefit you. Like, they're the foods that we want to start cutting out. And no, oh, did I say that? Yeah, I did say that. So no carbs will lead us to trashy foods, but enforcing carbs, hell or high water at 8 a.m, 9 p.m, whatever, 8 a.m, 1 p.m, dinner time, I mean, that will lead to what I call double dieting, where we have the amount of food or the types of food or the schedule with food that a diet would approve of, or judgment and opinions that we approve of. Like, we approve of that baseline eating, but then we eat all the stuff we should eat, but then we end up eating all the stuff we want to eat on top of it. So the baseline planned out day of eating rarely happens / never ever happens, because it's always supplemented by what we actually want to eat on top of it. And I call that double dieting, where we're actually eating two diets, but we only have one body, we only have one digestive system. So inevitably stuff has to be stored. So I think the happy medium, and this is the whole thing, the bully in our mind, the black and white thinking, the all or nothing, the on the wagon, off the wagon, good day, bad day thinking, hates the concept of balance and being relative. It hates it. Like, it just, like, give me the answer. Give me a food that I can eat loads of and not put on weight. Give me the answer of the food that I need to cut out for 30 days to lose weight. Like, that's what the kind of bully in our mind wants, that black and white thinking. Whereas actually our health and our weight will always come from knowing when we need to eat more, knowing when we need to eat less. And we will always know when we need to eat more and when we need to eat less, because of how our belly feels. And I was thinking about this morning in the shower, actually, that like, I suppose one thing that I used to as well was, you know, because it's hard at the start of this, right, when you're honestly trying to click in to your healthy weight signals. So your healthy weight signals, your ideal weight signals, are what your taste buds are telling you, what your hunger is telling you, what your hunger is telling you. Like, that's all based around your ideal weight. And we cause weight problems because there's times when we're not remotely hungry, but we eat anyways. There's times that something doesn't taste good, but we would finish the whole plate of it. There's times that we feel full as a frog, bursting at the seams, and we keep force feeding food in anyways. So, you know, just in case there's any doubt that you can't trust your signals, that if you were to trust your signals, you'd put on loads more weight, please, please, please remember all the times that you ate stuff that wasn't tasting good. Please remember all the times that you were full and you were sitting down to dinners and you didn't need them. So it was not your stomach signals that caused this weight problem. It was your mind telling you, go on, go on, go on. You have to eat dinner. You should, like, you're going to be good tomorrow. You know, this is a bank holiday. You can do whatever the hell you want. You're going to go for a big walk. You can be good next week. You can be good on Monday. It's all the eating that's driven by our mind and our mind's ability to actually overpower the feeling of our belly. So it's like our belly might say, hey, you're full. Our mind is like, it doesn't matter because you're going for a walk tomorrow. And when we're really trying to listen to our body now, I kind of think the easiest way of knowing whether you listen to your body or your mind is how you felt afterwards, because our mind is tricking us and be like, and it can be like, no, this is like being kind to yourself. You know, this is listening to your signals. And then you finish eating and you feel worse. It was absolutely, totally unnecessary. It actually was extra. You feel kind of overfull now, or you're going to bed feeling uncomfortable, or you're heading back upstairs to go to work uncomfortable, whatever it might be. That's how you know, oh, right. So the mind was behind that, not my body. You know, that's always the proof of the pudding. Like I always say, I suppose it's like, you want to help your body. You want to help your physical body. You want to help your weight. You want to help your health. So that comes from signals. That can only come from physical signals. Your measure of where you're going will come from physical signals, not decided rights and wrongs in your head. Do you know? So yeah, what was the next one? I've said that. Your body will find the carbs anyway. I suppose, and just again with balance, like, your body does not need no carbs, and it probably doesn't need tons of carbs. And I suppose we have to think of this from a few points of view, right? So say, for instance, I'm just off the phone from a client. She had 2 bowls of cornflakes this morning. That was her listening to her belly. Another morning, 1 bowl of cornflakes. She's happy out, gets on with her day. This morning, she knows she needed 2. And when she ate 2, she got to that cozy, happy belly, nicely full feeling. So there can be nothing wrong with that. Just like if we were cold and we put on 1 jumper and we weren't warm yet, and then we put on a second jumper and now we are actually warm. That comfort signal is comfort feedback to say you've done the right thing. And so my client feeling comfortable after the 2 bowls of cereal this morning, that was her body saying, you done the right thing. And the next part of the trusting journey of the day would be, because basically us not trusting our body is making our body eat when it doesn't want food and then not letting it eat when it does want food. So the next part of the trust now would be that client, and she's well able, she's down the road of doing all of this anyway, she's in a good spot, will be seeing when that cornflakes wears off. So it won't be like, oh, I must need a mid-morning snack, I must need this, I must need that. Nope. It will be her seeing how long the fuel in the cornflakes lasts her before it's time to start thinking about food again, before her belly is getting empty, before her physical signals are telling her you need grub. You're starting to not feel good because you need grub. So that would be the thing to listen to. I suppose another thing with, and we all know this, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably more afraid of carbs, if anything. But I suppose one thing we do have to be conscious of in today's day and age is we don't want just a beige diet. So Ireland has a really high rate of celiac disease. Unfortunately, one of our lecturers in Surrey University, which is quite embarrassing being an Irish person in this class, he told us part of the reason for that is because we're more inbred. But another part of it is because we went from having no gluten in our diet to loads of gluten. Porridge is minimal gluten, and we would have been eating porridge, oats, oat bread, potatoes. Our diet was naturally very low in gluten / not even there. And we went from that to gluten cereals, sandwiches for lunch, pizza and pasta, stuff you put in the oven, breaded stuff, whatever. So our diet went from no gluten to a lot of gluten in a really small space of time. Probably 100 years, if not less, I suppose. 1 to 200 years maybe. And so no evolution can keep up with that. That's quite a quick change for our insides, basically. So that can be why, a load of gluten doesn't suit us, or not everyone would feel great after a giant cuisine de France roll or something. And I'm going to be a broken record here. Cuisine de France and bread rolls and stuff like that, it's so gorgeous, so necessary in our diet. We just have to keep remembering to eat until you're getting the prize. You've got all the taste, and bread obviously is an excellent vehicle for whatever meat or sauces or yumminess we're going to put on top of the bread. So it's a great vehicle, but we want to have the taste, we want to have the energy, but we want to bow out well before we know that in 20 minutes time we're going to be uncomfortable if we keep going. That's the part you don't deserve. And I suppose another way to think about, whenever you listen to your belly, right? Whenever you listen to your belly saying, hey, you're full, what you're actually doing is creating room for something way more gorgeous later today and tomorrow, because there's always nicer calories around the corner. So you mark my words, something is going to appear to you in the next 48 hours that at the time of listening to this podcast, you were not aware of was going to show up in your future. So yeah, we want to leave room for new, taste explosions all over again. It's so pointless still being full on the same bread 6 hours later, because that was just one taste, that was just one bit of crack. and it's just annoying then to have to put up with that fullness and heaviness for the whole day. That's the part of it that's unnecessary. So I suppose we want to remember to bow out. So a beige diet where it's just breaded stuff, it's just pastas, or it's just breads, or it's just crackers or whatever. I suppose in today's world, it's very easy to do that. And it's not great. It's definitely not great for weight, because satiety and the feeling of fullness is kind of a holistic 360 experience. It is the taste, it is the occasion, it is sometimes the texture, the smell, and then it's the nutrient mix. It's, like a mixed meal basically will really help with satiety. If you've got a mixed meal that tastes amazing, so it tastes amazing, you're really lucky feeling when you're eating it. You feel lucky when you're eating it, I mean. And then you've got some carbs there, you've got like veg there, good bulk of veg there, and you've got some protein. So they're all three different ways that communicate to the brain that you're full. They're different nutrients that talk to the stomach in different ways that all contribute to the feeling of fullness. So sometimes for me, I find stuff like risotto baby food, because it's super, creamy and comforting and lovely from that perspective. But I could just spoon it and 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 spoon it into my body till the cows come home, because my brain or body seems to be a bit dopey when it comes to registering fullness from carbs as well as other people. And that's another thing that's proven in studies. They've even tested it out on identical twins. And identical twins will have a different insulin response to rice or bread or pasta. So everyone's insulin response, insulin is the taxis that take the broken down sugar to where it needs to go in the body. And we don't want too much sugar flying around. And then also, I suppose, when people have really sugary drinks, right, or really sugary things that don't contain, say, fat or protein, the body sends out a rake of taxis. And what it does is that these are made up units. But say if you drank 4 units of glucose, the body will send out enough taxis to suck up 5 or 6 units of sugar from the bloodstream. And that's why we can have sugar crashes. So that, say, sugary drinks generally don't give people energy. The overall net effect is less energy. But anyways, I've kind of deviated to the point that, say for me now, cornflakes with a load of sugar, that for me would be a taste food. I'm not really, it'd be a taste and a comfort food. So there might be the odd time every 6 months or whatever where my supper will be as many bowls of cornflakes and sugar it takes to feel full. That will be my supper. But if I was to have a variety pack of cornflakes in the morning, the recommended portion size of 30 grams or whatever of cereal, I don't think it would fill a hole in my tooth. But that's just me, and other people are different. So my point there is that for some of us, we don't register carbs amazingly well. So sometimes it's good to see carbs, certain carbs, not all carbs, as a bit more of a taste food. But you are going to be relying on the fibre and water that's in all your veggies for fullness, and maybe a bit of protein and fats as well to help the fullness. And that's why pasta only dishes, having them all the time, or having, risotto all the time, or just basically having carb only dishes is my point. I don't mean to single out tagliatelle or rice or anything like that. I love them, I have them all the time. But I'm saying having just one nutrient on repeat as your meal, I just think there's a high chance then there's going to be some overeating, because you don't have that 360 nutrient support of the feeling of fullness. You're just getting the carbs. And I would want to wish us back to old Ireland, but again, in old Ireland, a lot of people now wouldn't be bothered with cabbage, and they wouldn't be bothered with turnips, and they wouldn't be bothered with any of the local seasonal veg because there's just 10 million nicer things they could be eating. But like back in the day, they had to and might as well have eaten as much cabbage and turnips and everything that they could get their hands on, because the little slither of meat that was available wouldn't have been enough to fill them. There mightn't have been unlimited potatoes in the family either. So the veg was what you depended on to fill up. And in a weird way, I'm jealous of those days. I'm jealous, because vegetables are so amazing for you. And, basically they will never come up with a potion or a drop or a tablet that will ever mimic vegetables or fruit, because what scientists and biologists have learned is that when you're putting a whole vegetable into your mouth, I don't mean a carrot in one go. I mean like it's in its truest form. It's not, there's not a load of additives. It just literally is a boiled carrot or something, or a roasted carrot or whatever. You're eating the one ingredient version of the food. Like basically from the minute you put that fruit or veg into your mouth, the benefits are everything that fruit and veg passes all the way from your mouth to the anus. Like every location that fruit and veg passes in your body helps, And so I suppose a big one here again is our gut flora. And what I haven't already mentioned is whole grain and the brown versions of stuff. And now I do think the advice on that has been taken a little bit too far, especially if you're an emotional eater. If you're an emotional eater, you need to get the job done. You need to eat something so tasty that by the time your belly says you're full, you're willing to bow out. What a lot of emotional eaters will do is they'll go on diets. They'll eat stuff that they don't necessarily love, but someone told them to eat because it helps weight loss. So they come to the feeling of fullness and they're not satisfied. And then they'll either break out and eat loads of stuff in the cupboards, or at some point of the week, get sick of the control, get sick of having to finish a meal when you're not actually satisfied, which is totally unnatural. It's totally unnatural to stop eating when you're absolutely not full and you're absolutely not satisfied. And that's what diets teach us to do. So that means that there's going to be another time of the week where people binge and they overeat and they can't stop eating and they're out of control eating. And that's a natural reaction to not letting yourself eat enough at these dinners. So when people are like, oh my God, brown rice is so much better than white rice. First of all, from a glucose control point of view, that is not true. Basmati is the slowest release carbohydrate rice there is. And then whole grain, I just think whole grain is yummy. I love whole grain rice. The like nuttier, more full-bodied flavour is just another nice rice to mix into your diet. So it's like, have all the rices. There is no good or bad one. And it's the same with pasta. It's like the whole grain ones have their place. And I was making a meal for my family and I asked Elma at work, like, what do you think would be a super easy thing that I could make for them? And she was like on about that TikTok recipe where you make the pasta and then in the oven you melt a Burzen thing of cheese and you chop up some gorgeous little cherry tomatoes or vine tomatoes. And, you can just do a selection of yumminess roasting in the oven with the melting Burzen cheese and then mix it into pasta. And then just being super selfish, I didn't really feel like the bloat, and I had a feeling that the way my body was feeling that day, if I was to add normal pasta in on top of it, I would be quite bloated and uncomfortable for the evening. So I made the selfish decision to make gluten-free pasta for everyone, and everyone said, oh my God, you do genuinely feel better from the gluten-free pasta, don't you? So I'm like, there's time for all of them. Then I was in Rome a few months ago. Of course I had loads of full gluten pasta. Of course I did. And also theirs is kind of better quality stuff. I don't think it has as high levels of gluten, so we tolerate it better. But just that there's a time for all of them. But I would really avoid the whole, this is a good bread and this is a bad bread. Because actually, if you're concerned about weight, what you need to be concerned about is suppressing your appetite. And if you're looking at a slice of rye bread or God forbid, Slimbos or any of the low-calorie breads, and you're like, oh, look at me doing a great gashka. Here I am with all my discipline and, you know, control and compromise. Like, that's the type of eating that causes a blowout. So it's like, choose something you feel lucky to be eating or don't eat it. But scrimping will cause a blowout. So yeah, so basically you could have a beautiful fresh sourdough with butter. And actually I might have mentioned that before. I've had a good few clients now who've lost a lot of weight, and their breakfast every morning was their most favourite sourdough toasted, their most favourite butter. Because especially after someone who's been dieting for years, they felt like the luckiest girls on the planet. Like, they felt delighted and satisfied, and like it was pleasure, it was luxury, it was taste, it was comfort. So they could just get on with their morning and not think about food. And that's what we want to do with our food. We want to hit the bullseye every time we eat. So yeah, so I think I've covered the basics, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And I work with people one-to-one. Happyweight.ie is my website, and check it out, and check me out on social media at happyweightaoife. Okay, thanks so much for being here, and have a lovely, lovely week.